Hello everybody, my name is Ratnos, and in this video we're going to talk about everything you need to know to prepare for Shadowlands, and then what you're going to have to plan to do for the first couple weeks of Shadowlands. I'm coming at this with a perspective of somebody who's looking to be a raider first and foremost. Depending on what your objectives are, you may have different goals, and you may want to do these things in a different order or with different priorities, but this is generally going to be pretty applicable for anybody whose goal is to get a character that's as powerful as possible around those first few weeks of Mythic Castle Nathria. And if you have other goals, you can change. But for the most part, if you have more casual goals, you have a lot more freedom and you can kind of do whatever you want with more of these things. So let's get started. What are we looking at here on screen? This is a very, very, very high quality spreadsheet that has a ton of information. I would highly recommend checking this out. I have a link in the description below. Created by Mediv, I believe is how we pronounce this. This is a Russian player. The guide is originally in Russian, so if you want to go and see the Russian version, that exists too. But it's been translated into English, pretty well translated as well, and it's a extremely good resource for looking at what's going to happen in Shadowlands. So to get started here, one thing that it shows is the calendar of what's going to happen. So on the Monday, that's when the expansion is coming out, and then we have 2 weeks of kind of prep time, and then it's normal week, and then it's Mythic week, and then we're off to the races. And basically, we can kind of segregate what you're going to want to do based on which of these 4 periods we're in. So right now, we're approaching the very end of this blue zone, which is the prep time, the time to get all your characters ready, time that's not particularly valuable. There's not really that much that you can do that's useful. Then we get into this kind of initial rush that's going to happen when the expansion comes out. We're going to be leveling up our characters. We're going to be getting stuff done on that first reset. It's a lot less than previous expansions were in the first week. There's a lot less islands that you need to get on. There's a lot less AP that you need to collect from that kind of stuff. So for the most part, I expect that if you are somebody who is a veteran of the BFA and Legion launches and you went pretty hard during those, you'll actually find yourself on like Thursday or Friday with not much to do. If you're only playing one character, you'll be like, okay, hang on, where's the grind? So that might be, if you're that kind of player, you may be interested in playing some alts. That's the kind of thing that this expansion is actually friendly to alts, even at the start of the expansion. But if you're not somebody who's going to go super hard, there is a lot to do in these first couple weeks to get your character ready. We'll talk about how to plan for that. Then you got normal Castle Nathria coming out, and then you get normal and heroic on the orange week here. And then Mythic is going to come out on the 16th. This is for the EU servers. It'll be the 15th, of course, for the NA servers. So let's get started by talking about some of the prep that you can do to get ready for this expansion. I'm not going to cover everything that's in this spreadsheet. You really should go check it out yourself if you want to see it. There's a whole tab about all kinds of different gear that you can get in your bags that'll help you out. One big item that I think maybe not everybody's aware of is gun shoes. These items will speed you up very, very fast. They're a great way to get ahead. If you are planning to level as fast as possible, there's a big difference between getting that first quest line, the intro quest line, done 5 minutes ahead of schedule or with the rest of the pack. If you can do it a little bit ahead of schedule, you can stay ahead of the pack and you can go leveling through the zones without a huge crowd of everybody leveling. It's like a traffic jam, right? You want to get ahead of the traffic jam. You don't want to be in it. So that's something to look out for, is just things you can do to speed up your leveling. And ideally, as soon as the expansion comes out, you're there and you're getting it going if you're planning to play at release. If you're just going to log on that night, and you're not planning to like hit the global release, it's a lot less relevant. There's not much you can do that way, but there's a bit of an incentive to do it this way because War Mode, if you're a Horde player, gives you a 10% experience boost. And if you're an Alliance player, it gives you a 25% experience boost right now, and that fluctuates based on how badly the Alliance is getting clobbered on War Mode bonuses. And it depends on which region you're in as well, I think, what that number ends up being. So if you're a player who wants to have War Mode on, but you don't actually want a PvP, you just want it for the PvE benefits, you have a huge incentive to get ahead of that pack so you don't get caught in some kind of PvP fracas. So that's something to think about. It's really valuable to hit the ground running. Perhaps with some shoes that'll help you do that. Another thing to consider for Shadowlands is that there's really not much water in this expansion. You may have kind of defaulted to, if you were somebody who got these Angler's Water Striders in the mail, you might have just slapped this on your mount equipment slot and completely forgotten that existed. And that's okay. It's not the end of the world to do that, but there are probably some better options for you going into Shadowlands. If you are playing a non-tank spec, you can put on the Comfortable Riders Barding, and that'll prevent you from getting dazed off of your mount. That's a big quality of life increase for questing. Or if you are a tank spec, or if you just aren't worried about getting dazed, the light step hoof plates for 20% increase to the mount's ground speed. Very valuable thing as well that will help you speed up too. So that's a little swap you may want to consider making. There's really not much need for the water walking on your mounts in this expansion, like there was a lot in Legion, and to a lesser extent there was still quite a bit of that in BFA. All right, so that's the preparation stuff. There's a lot more you can do getting your characters ready over these next couple days before the expansion comes out if you want, and that spreadsheet has a tremendous amount of good stuff. Let's move on to talking about so first of all, the leveling process. You've got to make a decision between whether you want to be war mode on or war mode off. There is actually a pretty big benefit to having the war mode on, that 10% bonus XP, even if it's only 10%, even if you're horde side, will help you out quite a bit because you need to hit certain levels to move to the next zone. So enabling that, if you're willing to, will mean that you have to do fewer bonus objectives, and you can just go straight through the quest lines in the earlier zones in Bastion, in Ardenweld, and you don't have to worry about doing as many bonus objectives. So that will speed up your leveling, but obviously it doesn't speed you up if you end up getting caught in PvP, so, pick your poison there. Also, grouping up is a really effective way to speed up your leveling. If you are playing when the global release happens, being with a group is a good idea. If somebody's having trouble logging in, this happened during BFA launch, where some servers were down for several days for people who were not on IPv6. My server was also just down for everybody for several hours when it shouldn't have been. And different people are having different difficulties connecting to the server. Be ready to just leave people behind. It's a cutthroat world, just leave them behind, level without them. But planning to have a group, if you can, is a good idea. That will make things a little bit faster and easier for leveling. All right, so you leveled your main character up, you hit max level. What is there to do in the first reset? Well, first of all, you may be wondering if there's anything you need to do before the weekly reset. If you're going really hard, you may notice that the expansion is actually coming out on the Monday. Reset for NA is on the Tuesday, and reset for EU is on the Wednesday, right? So you've got something like 20 hours for NA, or 16 hours for NA or something, or 30-something hours for EU to get stuff done in the first weekly reset, rather than having to, so you'd be maybe thinking there's some advantage that can be gained there. I'm here to tell you there isn't. The only thing you can benefit by leveling fast with regards to resets is you get an extra daily reset of emissaries. If you can level in that first daily reset, you can do an extra emissary, and it's really not a big deal. It's not something like AP where there's actually a meaningful permanent benefit for doing that. So I wouldn't worry about any kind of reset related things. All of the weekly stuff doesn't actually start until that first weekly reset. So what are the weekly reset things you can be doing? Well, there's Torghast. Torghast was something that originally it looks like it was going to be a massive, probably the biggest part of the week 1 content grind per character was going to be several hours of grinding Torghast, layers 1 through 6. But turns out that they're actually not going to have this happen at all. What's going to happen is only in the first weekly reset, you will only, or after the first weekly reset, like I said, you're not going to be able to do it until that first reset. You can only do layers 1 through 3 of Torghast, and those are much easier than layers 4 through 6, which are not going to actually unlock until week 3 of the expansion, until normal/heroic Castle Nathria comes out. So the Torghast grind is something you still should do that first week. You should get these layers done, but you no longer have a massive amount of hours, like 6 hours or whatever, of Torghast ahead of you per character on that first reset. It's just going to be a couple. When should you do your Torghast is an interesting question. I think a lot of people are going to be pretty excited to get in there, but Torghast difficulty is not scaling with your item level. It's harder if you're lower item level, and it doesn't reward anything up front. It'll only reward you with some Soul Ash, and it's unclear whether you'll even be able to craft Legendary with the Soul Ash in the first week. So, Torghast is something you should probably plan to do towards the end of the reset, because that's when your character will have the most item levels, and so that's when you'll have the highest chance of success and the highest speed in your Torghast run. So it's the most efficient to do it then. You'd rather instead do stuff like Mythic 0 dungeons, Heroic dungeons, whatever kind of content like that you want to get done earlier in the week, and then do the Torghast at the end of the week. Other stuff to do every day, an Emissary Quest. You don't need to do all the world quests. There's no benefit to doing world quest swoops of the whole map like people did at the start of BFA. Really just do the Emissary and you're totally fine, and then cherry pick any other world quests that have something you specifically want, which will probably be pretty few of them. The Maw is a big thing to be doing every day. The Maw is a very interesting thing that I imagine a lot of people are going to do inefficiently. It's not a big deal. There's not really big rewards that are behind it. The biggest thing you can get from doing the Maw is you can collect either Reputation with Venari or Stygia. And both of these are resources that you'll get from different events in the Maw at different ratios. What's important if you're a raider is the Reputation. The Reputation is going to get you access to sockets, and the Reputation is going to get you access to like a random conduit that you can purchase. So for the most part, I think that if you're a high-end raider and you're looking at the Maw, the thing you want to kind of beeline towards is that socket, because we might be able to get one in the first couple weeks of Mythic Castle Nathria. If that kind of thing, if you're not interested in going to the Maw every day, you don't really need to worry about that. But if you are a high-end raider type, you're basically going to be looking for activities you can do in the Maw that have the best ratio of Reputation to filling up the Eye of the Jailer. And if you don't know how the Eye of the Jailer works, everything you can do in the Maw will basically charge up this Eye of the Jailer meter. That resets every day. The Maw gets more dangerous as you fill it up, and once it gets full, you basically have to leave the Maw. You get killed after a minute or two once that thing is full. So you're looking to optimize the amount of Reputation you can get. With Venari is the current strategy that looks like it's going to be ideal, because the Stygia is just used mostly for making Torghast easier. You use it to buy, upgrades that make Torghast a little bit easier, but it doesn't look like Torghast difficulty is going to be an important factor at all. So that's the kind of thing that you're going to want to optimize for in the Maw. That's one of your daily things. So your daily rotation of stuff to do is Emissary, which you can even do. You can just do those 3 emissaries every 3 days instead of one every 1 day, and the Maw. And then the weekly stuff you've got to do is Torghast, a couple hours of Torghast, and maybe Mythic Zeros. Even the Mythic Zeros, you'll do them probably the first couple weeks and then not worry about them. When does Mythic Plus open up? Mythic Plus opens up on the normal and heroic week, but you can't get rewards above like a +6 key level. Like there's no reason to push really high on plus. You're just going to spam. I forget if it's +6 or +4 or something this X pack, but it doesn't matter. It's going to be a low level key that you can grind those as much as you want for gear that will be invalidated by even normal Castle Nathria gear, but especially the heroic Castle Nathria gear that's already available, and will quickly become obsolete. So it's really there's not a huge incentive to put your nose down and do a tremendous amount of M+. The reason you might want to do some number of high keys is to get a good Great Vault reward, which is that kind of weekly chest replacement feature. But the end of dungeon loot itself is pretty lackluster. On Mythic opening up, the item level of M+ bumps up again as well. You can do up to a 14 for slightly worse than heroic gear. Again, that seems pretty lackluster. It seems like there's not a huge incentive to just grind Mythic Plus if you're able to set foot in the raid. If you're not able to set foot in the raid, then obviously don't worry about it. Do a bunch of M+, that'll be fine. PvP is also something worth considering doing. PvP is having sort of a similar cadence of item levels, where the item level of your PvP items can get upgraded based on a weekly time gating system. So sort of similar to how cloaks worked in 8.3. So that's something that you can do as well. And particularly if you're a high-end raider, you're going to find yourself with not much to do during these first weeks if you're on one character. PvP is the best way to kind of sink the rest of your time in there, grind up a bunch of honor. You'll be able to maybe make it so you can trade some stuff that you otherwise wouldn't be able to if you upgrade a PvP item in that slot. So that's the kind of thing you could be doing with your time. The other option is to level up some alts. Like we just said, the weekly commitment is pretty low. It's pretty lightweight weekly commitment on your characters each week. And the leveling up process itself and getting ready for endgame is also a pretty low commitment. It's not something like patch 8.2 where you had just this huge, thick list of essences that you needed to do a month-long grind to get access to each one of. Your alt can basically be ready to game in a couple hours. You can level it up a couple different ways. You can either level through the story again, or you can use this Threads of Fate option on your alts, and then just do like world quests, normal dungeons, whatever you want to level up. And just skip the entire storyline campaign. So those are the two options you have there. That lets you pick a Covenant early as well, I think. So that's pretty cool. There are a couple of other forms of progression that you're going to be exploring. The Covenant Hall, the Renown systems, you're going to be upgrading those. And there's some power gated behind those. Really not much. The Renown system is basically the weekly time gated thing as well, where if you're playing the game even a third as much as a player that's doing all their stuff every day, or even a quarter as much, some very small fraction as much, you're going to hit your Renown cap for the week very easily. And so even though there are some good rewards gated behind that, there's basically nobody who's going to have an issue with that. The issue comes if you decide to switch your Covenant. If you decide to switch your Covenant, you're going to reset all your Renown in the new Covenant you join. And so if you're trying to switch your Covenant for a specific boss, you need to make sure that you have a couple days to grind back up all your Renown. And that you might be a little bit behind. What sorts of things are Renown bonuses? Stuff like unlocking more of your Soulbind tree, getting some stamina buffs. That's mainly the stuff that comes from Renown levels. So it's not the end of the world to be behind on this a little bit, but it is worth catching up on. And again, if you come late to the party, you can catch up to that kind of global time gate. It's a very similar system to the cloak level, where the cloak level, you can either hit the ceiling and then the ceiling goes up every week and you go with it, or if you come in late, the ceiling's way higher and you can still go and hit that just a little bit slower, and then you're caught up as well. Now let's talk a little bit about the process of deciding which Covenant you're going to play. Depending on which class you're playing, these are going to have very different answers. The best resource is probably your class Discord or a good content creator for your class. I don't have any answers for any specific specs to give you here. Wowhead guide writers also have some options. Really what you should do is look at several pieces of information for your spec, ideally, and see if there's a consensus or if there's disagreement. And if there's a disagreement, then you need to look further into it. One thing you may not be considering is deciding when your power spike is going to hit, because not all Covenants, it's not like Covenants are just these static entities against each other. Different Covenants are more or less powerful on different weeks because the Soulbind trees unlock gradually. So on this great spreadsheet, there is this little chart here that shows when you are going to unlock a certain potency conduit on each Soulbind tree. And you get your first one very quick, but when you get access to your second potency conduit is hugely different depending on which Covenant you pick. If you pick Night Fae, you will have a second potency conduit on the first week of Mythic. If you pick Venthyr, you will not have one until the fifth week of Mythic here, the 8th week of the expansion. So this might mean that a theoretical sim has Venthyr up by 2% for your spec, but in practice, Night Fae might actually be 5% better for these crucial 4 weeks at the start of Mythic progression. So identify when you want your character to be as powerful as possible. Look at something like when did your guild kill N'Zoth in terms of number of weeks from Mythic starting. And if you're a guild that killed it, this would be like a world top 20, world top 50 or something in Ny'alotha levels would be on those weeks. But that might be a much wider range of people in this coming expansion, in this coming tier, because the first raid of the expansion might be substantially easier than Ny'alotha was. So if the 5th week of the expansion stops being exclusive and it starts being like the 3rd week of the expansion is when World Top 100 finishes out, and the 4th week is World Top 250 or something, then all of a sudden everybody in all those guilds should be considering, not playing Venthyr, even if that's a good looking Covenant for them, because they want access to this second potency conduit early. Either way, it's something to consider. Just planning out when you want your character to be powerful is worth thinking about. Ideally, you want to put yourself in a position where you don't have a planned swap, but it might be worth it, right? You might decide, all right, I'll play Night Fae for these first 2 weeks, and then once we finish with raid on the 2nd week of Mythic here, I will then go and switch my Covenant and then do a bunch of Renown building stuff on that 3rd week before we start our raid, so I'll be caught up. The downside of doing that is now if you ever switch back to Night Fae, it's not an instant swap. It's a 1 week, or it's a 2 week annoying quest chain type situation to swap back to Night Fae. So you're putting yourself in a position where you'll have less flexibility in the future and potentially even in future patches. But the short-term benefit may be worthwhile. This is all something that you need to consider for yourself if you're interested in having a maximized character. Most players probably don't need to worry about this. Most players will probably only experience this where the Night Fae player in your dungeon group is going to be doing quite a bit more damage for you than these couple weeks, right? Or the Night Fae that you PvP against is gonna slap you around if you're PvPing in these first couple weeks or something. Hopefully, honestly, if Blizzard could change one small thing before the expansion launches, it would be fixing this. I think this discrepancy in when you get access to your second potency conduit should be addressed, because they did address this. They literally normalized this, and then they reshuffled around all of the Covenant, all the soul binds, and broke it again back to where there's now a difference. So it's maybe not too late for this to not be a feature of the expansion, but obviously we're running up right against it. So that's what's going on there. All right, what did I miss? I'm just going to check on I have a little notepad document over here. I think I've got everything that I plan to talk about. So yeah, if I missed something, let me know in the comments below. I've looked at like 2 of the tabs on this spreadsheet, but there is so much good information in this one. So again, just spending an hour reading through this whole thing is a really, really, really good idea. And, go throw the creator. I think they just have their Instagram here. So I guess that's the place you'd want to go and follow them. So, go check them out, because this is a really useful thing. I imagine it'll be in Russian mostly, so maybe not too much too much use for you, but there's their guilds their guilds and stuff. So that's this is the people we owe this incredible spreadsheet credit for. Anyways, I've been Dratnos. Thanks everybody for watching. Check out my stream, twitch.tv/Dratnos. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.